Hello everybody, today we're going to go ahead and get started on domain and range of continuous functions. This is day 3 of our unit. Let's just go ahead and get started. So, continuous function is those graphs that we've seen where there's an infinite number of ordered pairs, so we can't write out all those x values and all the y values. They're typically going to look like lines or curves where all the ordered pairs are connected. Okay, so to find the domain and range of that, what we do is we actually kind of box it in and say what these like x values and what these y values are between. That way we know that we're using all those x values and all those y values between those two numbers. So when we box it in, we actually draw edges around the function. So we only include, the only thing inside is the entirety of that graph. So for domain, we look for the edges and where they fall on the x-axis. Where the range, we kind of look for where they fall on the y-axis. And when we draw those edges, if we hit a point, we actually go to that number. But if we hit an arrow, where a lot of these graphs have arrows on them, what that means is that we're either going to positive infinity or we're going to negative infinity. Because that arrow tells us it's going to keep going past this graph and go on forever. Okay? So there's two ways we can go ahead and write domain and range. One is step builder. Now, because we're talking about like the values falling between two numbers, what that actually comes out looking like is a compound inequality of an AND statement, where we just kind of smush it together. So the way we write that is the smallest number first, our inequality symbols, and the variable in the middle, and our biggest number, with this normal step builder stuff going in the front. Okay. Most of the time, you're probably going to use less than, because if you go from smallest to biggest, you're going to keep getting larger. So that first one's going to be smaller than the next one one's going to be smaller than the last one, all that fun stuff. However, if you go from biggest to smallest, you might use greater than. It's up to you. Least to greatest is the more acceptable way to do it. Okay? So if you're actually going to hit a point, if your smallest and biggest number is an actual number that you fell on, you're going to use an equal to part, because you actually have a point on that number. Okay? Or you can use greater than or equal to. Now, but if you hit an open circle, you're going up to that number but not actually hitting it. Or if you go to it, and if you get an arrow and you're actually going to infinity, you do not actually equal infinity, so you can't say you're equal to it. You say you can go up to it but not equal. So you're going to use a less than or a greater than symbol for it. The other way is interval notation. And interval notation is actually the honors topic for this unit. So what it does is very similar, where you use the smallest and biggest number, but instead of using inequality symbols, they have separate symbols, parentheses and brackets, to tell you if it's including that number, if it's equal to that number, or if it's excluding it, not equal to that number. Okay? Interval notation will not be on your SOL, but step builder will, so you need to know that for sure. But you need to also know interval for your tests. So we use parentheses around numbers that we are not equal to. So infinities, open circles, kind of that kind of stuff. Where brackets are used around numbers that we are equal to. Okay? Then you just write out the smallest, comma, biggest, and then put the correct parenthesis or bracket around it. Now, these could match. They might not match. So it's okay if you have a parenthesis in the front and a bracket in the back. That's totally fine. You will always have parentheses around infinity. So wherever you have an infinity, always put a parenthesis around it. Okay? So example 1. Sorry, I forgot to close some things, but find domain and range and write your step builder notation. So I need to box in this picture, okay, because it's kind of all over the place and it's hard to see where my edges are. So what I'm going to do is actually draw a vertical line the furthest I can while still touching this graph. So here it is. And on the other side of the x-axis as well. Here. Alright? What that does is tell me what my domain is. So it's all these numbers in between these two red lines. Now this red line is actually not a real red line, because what I'm hitting here is this arrow. So really, it's just there for my benefit. It means I'm going to keep going to negative infinity. That's what the neg inf means. I'm going to negative infinity because that arrow is going to keep drawing that way, even though I don't have that much graph. Now here is very different though, because here it clearly ends, but I also have a point on this 4. So 4 is the biggest number I can be, but it's going to go all the way to negative infinity for my smallest. So when I write my domain and range, I'm going to write my smallest number first in negative infinity, some inequality signs in the middle with the variable, and then my biggest number, the 4. So what it actually looks like is this. X such that your smallest number first, the negative infinity, inequality symbol is less than, not equal to, because I cannot equal negative infinity. It's just direction, it's not a number. Okay? X, which is less than or equal to, I am equal to because I actually have a point on this value, to 4. Okay? Range, I do very similar, but I'm going to do up top and down below. So I'm going to draw my lines. So here I have lines, I promise. Here's my smallest. Okay, that's the lowest I go. And up here, somewhere, I promise you, I drew lines. Right here is my biggest. That point is also my tallest point. So down here, my smallest number is actually -5. And I know I'm going to -5. I'm not going past it because I don't have anything lower than it. I'm not hitting an arrow, so I know that's the smallest value I can be. Up here, my tallest value can be 2, because I'm hitting a point there, and it's the tallest point total, like, for the whole graph. So my range is I'm actually going from -5 to 2, so -5 should be written first, and I'm actually less than or equal to it, because I do have a point on -5, y, which is less than or equal to 2, because again, I have a point that's on 2. So that is my range. And that's how I'd write it in set builder notation. And I use this box. Now, I'm going to show you I'm going to give you a graphic organizer, kind of foldable, next class, to help you with these edges and to help you figure out, well, hey, if it's an arrow, I'm going to negative infinity or positive infinity. But if it's a point, I just hit that number. Okay, so we will do more practice in class. So you guys have one try on your own, like that, with set builder notation. Okay? And we will go over it. So again, try it. Do what you think you should be doing. Okay? It's not that you have no idea what to do because you just saw something. So try mimicking that, if anything. Okay? That way you have something to correct rather than watching me do it. Because you need to do something for yourself. That way you can figure out where you're going wrong and correct that. That's going to be more meaningful to you than just listening to me go over it. Alright? Example 2. So now we're going to do domain and range, and we're going to write it in interval notation. I'm still going to find my biggest and smallest number the same way. I'm going to draw edges. So I'm going to start with domain. Drew my line. This is so off. Draw my line right here. And draw my other line. So off. Come on. There. Okay? So what that's telling me is that I can go to -5. And 3 here. Oop, not there. Here. And I'm using all these x values in between actually twice, because on the bottom and on the top. So I need to tell them that I'm between -5 and 3. So with interval notation, what I do is I just go ahead and write that out. I do -5, comma 3, smallest, comma biggest. And then I'm going to use either parentheses or brackets around those numbers to like close it off, so it kind of looks like an ordered pair, but not really. That way, those symbols will tell me if it's including that number or not. So -5, because I actually have a point on -5, I am going to put a bracket around it. And 3, because I have a point on 3, I'm going to put a bracket around that. If I just had an open circle there, or these were arrows, I'd be just using a parenthesis. But because I actually have a point there, I can write it just like that. And that's all I need to do is find my two numbers and then figure out if they're included or not. So I find this a lot easier than set builder because you don't have to worry about the inequality symbols, and there's so much less to do for it. So with range, I'm going to do the same thing. I draw my lines, top and bottom. Here's the highest, there's the lowest. So this highest would be 7, and my lowest would be -1. -1. Okay, now to go through that, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do -1, comma 7 and figure out what kind of symbol goes around those numbers. -1 I actually have a point there, so I'm going to use a bracket. And with 7, I have a point there, so I use a bracket around that. So my range is just that. Okay? You guys have a try on your own here, where you're going to use interval notation. Be wary of these arrows, okay? Both try on your own. These arrows, even though they look like they're going in one direction, they're actually moving in 2 directions. Up and out, or down and out, okay? So be very aware of which way it's going. It's not just going straight north, or south, or east or west. Typically, a lot of times, they're going southeast, southwest, northwest, northeast, which has both of them, okay? So it'll be a reference to both your domain and your range, okay? So go ahead and give these 2 a try. Actually try them, and we will go over the answers, and we will do tons of practice. Don't worry, this is not all you're going to see. This is just a basic introduction to it. Okay? If you guys have any questions, write them down. Otherwise, I will see you next class. Bye.